Hey, what's going on, YouTube? It's the Brain of the Mainframe POPXP for the launch party premiere for Miss Fury.
Yeah, baby.
Yes.
So excited. So excited. Crazy morning, crazy afternoon. We had some last minute press release things. We trying to get it out and move everything.
And Jasmine's.
But
We're live.
I'm excited. What can I say?
You know, no matter how much time and planning goes into something, and Billy knows this, he's been doing it a long time, and Jeff knows this, he's been doing it a long time, it's always last minute, right?
Yeah. After we've been preparing for this book for weeks, you know, we got all the art and everything like that, and then it's always these little tweaks at the last minute, and my phone hasn't been ringing, and I'm like, wow, am I a cartoonist? I guess not. I'm a businessman. But anyway, it's good to see you guys. Of course, Niall the Brain Scholar, as always.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And, of course, JC Vaughn. Good to see you, Jeff. Tex. And, of course, Joe Rybant. Now, Joe, we pronounce your last name Rybant, right?
Yep, you got it. Got it in one.
And Joe is the executive editor of Dynamite Comics, Dynamite Entertainment. And thank you here because, after all, everyone, this is a Dynamite comic book. So we felt it apropos to have the big boss here. So, Joe, so glad that you came on board. Thank you for doing this with me, with allowing me to bring Miss Fury. And that you guys like my story and the whole thing, and I just love it. I'm so stoked right now. You have no idea. I didn't even really sleep last night much.
Yeah, your enthusiasm knows no bounds, sir. So I think everyone that knows you knows that for a fact. We've known each other for a long time, actually. Probably met you around the same time that I met Jeff, and go back a long ways. And I think this is our first project. You've done covers for us, but I think this is the first project where you're doing the writing, doing the art direction, and doing a lot more than just some covers, which is great.
Yep. And I love it. I love working with everybody at Dynamite. I love your business model. I love how diverse you are with your creators. And of course, I mean, you're doing all these fun characters, you know, and doing like. You know, with your John Carter or your Jaja Thoris, which I prefer personally, but just Vampirella, and then I mean, just you've got how many properties does Dynamite have now that you guys are publishing?
I'd say I was told there'd be no math, Billy.
Okay,
but you know, I would say easily. I mean, over the course of the almost 20 years that we've been doing this. Hundreds, you know, and company-owned stuff, licensed stuff, creator-owned stuff. I mean, stuff comes in and out. Some of our most consistent titles, of course, have been Army of Darkness and Red Sonja. Most recently, although it's not recent, it's 10 years old or so, but The Boys with Garth and Derek and Russ. Yeah. And then, you know, stuff that comes in and out, movie adaptations, movie licensing, as I mentioned, creator-owned stuff, and then stuff like this, stuff like you know, resurrections of some licensed properties with the right creative team.
Wonderful,
crazy.
You guys are doing it right. You guys are doing it right.
We're trying.
So
it's not easy, as you know. So
I got the link. I'm gonna share the link on Facebook on the Facebook, Jeff.
And you are live. And you're up to 8 backers right now.
All right, not bad for the first minute. Let's see. Hello, all. We are live. Let me. That we are
live.
So Joe, let me ask you.
This is our buddy fanboy Blevins.
How's it going? I thought that I was going to miss the show.
Oh,
because I had the wrong link. No.
What? That wasn't me. I think I gave you the link to tomorrow's show.
You missed the glorious pre-show banter.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm gonna cry about it. Not now though, but later.
It was good. It's good stuff,
dude. I believe it.
It really.
I've been a fan of Dynamite's forever.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
Me too. Mostly. I've been there from the start. I started with Nick when the company was just Dynamic Forces, and through a series of kind of boring businessy type events, we ended up starting to publish. And it wasn't anything that anyone was really seeking out, or that really had the mechanics to do, but it just kind of started to happen, So it's an interesting way of being around for, again, close to. I've been with the company for 20 years, Company's been around longer than that, and we've been publishing, I don't know, probably 18 years or so. I'm probably wrong on that, but again, I was told there would be no math. So,
well, it definitely has been a very well received evolution. How's that?
Yeah, that is a very, very nice way of saying it. I'm not sure if we're still allowed to talk about evolution, but that is a very nice way of saying it. I think that developmentally we have done a little bit of everything, and we all care about the business, we care about the medium, we care about creative, we care about writers, artists, everybody, and it's really a place to kind of do what you want. With licensed stuff, it sometimes can get a little bit more tricky. Jeff's worked on licensed stuff and knows all about the ins and outs of licensed stuff. It's very even different from working for Marvel or DC when you're working on a licensed property. But having control of properties, like having control of Miss Fury and letting Billy do what he wants here, is kind of a rarity in the business for sure.
Joe, I wanted to ask you about that. You did a really good job of explaining the different types of your model that you guys have done, and it's very wide ranging. But what drew you to Billy's story on Miss Fury? I mean, yeah, you get Billy Tucci doing covers, that's great, all that's cool and everything like that. But there's got to be some story there. What grabbed you about it?
Yeah, I think Billy, like Garth, and probably a handful of other people working in this business, still have an attachment to the World War II era in terms of both setting, thematics, visuals, storytelling. And we had done some Miss Fury stuff that was rooted in its origin era, but it had been a long time since we'd done that. And when Garth approaches a World War II story, he approaches it without superheroes because he doesn't like mixing those two things. But we have done a lot of mixing of those things, and personally, I love that stuff. When we did the superpowers stuff with Alex, it was all when we set the stuff in its era, because obviously the story was jumping around in time. But when we set the stuff in World War II, I loved working on that stuff and inserting realistic, real dates, real events, real people, real times, and all that stuff. And I knew, without knowing Billy as well as you guys probably do, but I knew that, from the Sergeant Rock book that he had done, and just from the conversations I've had with him, I knew that era and a combination of the storytelling and a quote unquote superhero were really a match made in heaven for sure.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting because I'd seen him do the real world events with the Sergeant Rock characters,
right,
in Lost Battalion, and really pull it off very well. A lot of acclaim for that. But it was more interesting to me to see him take that sort of thought a step further and work it in with a superhero, and particularly a historically critical female superhero.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really it's a combination of really cool. Well, I'm sorry, I'm not going to say cool when it comes to World War II, but World War II being a very, very important period of time, and myself as a guy in his what am I in my late 40s, it's always felt like a really important thing to me, just because of everything that we are dealing with now, not the now, but the more general now, as a result of that geopolitically, and again, the era, the visuals. And putting a cool superhero into it, or even non-superhero stuff, Sergeant Rock, like you mentioned Sergeant Rock. I love going back and reading old Sergeant Rocks,
Yeah.
And it's just, there's something about it, and it allows you to do a type of storytelling that Marvel and DC seem to have moved away from, as they're constantly trying to update their characters. Every once in a while they'll dip back into their quote unquote golden age and set something there or whatever, but not with the grit that I think you can get out of a more independent publisher. And that's no disrespect to them whatsoever. It's just
it isn't, and you saw that with the recent Invaders series. That had two artists going, flashback artist and a present day artist. That Marvel was at least attempting to do stuff like that. But it obviously, you also, with the team book, you're not going to have the intimacy that this story can afford you.
Right. Yeah, and Billy's doing taking some very dark subject matter. I mean, I see some people talking in the comments about the title, and I'll just blather for a minute about. I didn't know what that title meant. I knew what it meant years ago, but I knew it as a band, and I'm obviously wearing a shirt that's the Unknown Pleasures album cover.
I know, well done with that.
But when I first heard the band Joy Division, I didn't know what that meant, and there was no internet. I'm sure I could have gone to the library to figure it out, but I wasn't really concerned about what the band, just like the band Bauhaus. I didn't know that was a German art movement from the 20s. Yeah. But a lot of people don't know what these things are as well, and it's very dark, but it's also historically accurate. And it's an interesting I think, and Billy could obviously speak more to why that was the but it's an interesting in a lot of levels to be doing that in 2020. I don't think there's any reason to shy away from the weirder or darker stuff of the past and learn from those issues, mistakes, human events, etc. I think it's important. I have 2 kids, and I think it's important for them to be bored by World War II stuff that their dad blathers on about, or war stuff in general that their dad blathers on about, than to not know it.
Yeah, Joe, I think you're entirely right about that. At the risk of sounding like the "Hey, you kids, get off my lawn" guy, there's not enough history taught.
Right.
and I don't mean so much the dates of stuff, but pretty critical events that have great moral complexity that we were taught in basic history aren't the things that are so much there anymore. And so I complain a little bit about that. And then a story like this comes along, and I'm just blown away by it, because I know it's going to make somebody look, even if it's just a few people, somebody's going to look up the history and learn something.
Yeah, we're a really long ways away from the end of that war, but and I don't want to keep name dropping Garth, but he's the guy I go. When I get together with him, we always end up drifting in conversation towards is that period of time. He's either read a new book and he's mentioned it to me, and then I'll read the book or whatever, or it's around this time of year, which is D-Day, and I know TCM last weekend was showing D-Day movies. Not quite sure why they chose last weekend as opposed to this coming weekend, because I think D-Day is on a Saturday, but whatever. Yeah. But it's around this time of year that I'll watch Patton, which I do every year. It's around this time of year I'll watch The Great Escape, which I do every year. And listen, some of them are more popcorny and some of them are more real.
Sure.
But having those conversations, I just actually when the quarantine started, I was doing a deep dive on a bunch of British war films that I had never seen, and talking to Garth about them and saying, "Oh, what's the next one I should watch?" Longest Day, and a bunch of more Battle of
Bulge, Battle of Britain.
Yeah, the Battle of Britain stuff.
Yeah.
And there's always something new to discover. And I don't want to make it seem like this is and again, this is a comic book too, but the backdrop is what's important to allow this type of story to be done,
So Billy, why don't we get into it? Let's start off with a little bit of history of Miss Fury. And by the way, you just broke your first 1,000.
All right.
Awesome.
So you're about to hit 1,200. Yes. But let's get into the history of Miss Fury. Who created Miss Fury, Billy?
Yeah, well, okay. The story of Miss Fury. Miss Fury was created by June Tarpé Mills, and there she is. She was a cartoonist in the late 1930s, one of the original comic artists, and she was a beautiful woman, single woman living in New York City, and she had worked on several a couple of little 4-page comic stories that they allowed her to do, and then she ended up changing her name to Tarpé Mills because it sounded more masculine. It sounded like it was it wasn't necessarily a woman like June, because they weren't taking them seriously at the time to draw comic strips, to draw comic books. So she used the name Tarpé Mills, which was her middle name, and she submitted the proposal for Miss Fury. It got accepted, and it was released on April 6th, 1941, a cool 6 months before Wonder Woman was. And just 1 month after Captain America debuted on March, I think Captain America was March 5th or 6th. So she's been punching Nazis since 1941, and a good 9 months before we entered World War II. So, but it's the story of Marla Drake, and Marla Drake is this very flippant, fashionista-esque socialite who is getting dressed for a costume party, and then she learns that another woman, one of her rivals, is wearing the same costume. It was something like a Gone with the Wind costume or something like that, and she was panicked. She didn't know what to do. Of course, this is the worst thing ever happened to her. So she's reminded that she has this panther skin that was gifted to her willed to her by her uncle, who was an explorer. But it has magical powers, and it's cursed, and do not wear it. Hey, Mandy. So she decides, well, I need to go to the party and put it on, and she ends up putting it on, and of course it is cursed. She ends up stopping a crime, and that's the beginning of Miss Fury, and it's really a costume that has launched 100 imitators. I mean, if you look at her, that is the original Catwoman costume, and I mean, look at exactly that. And if you look at the costume, that Catwoman on the left debuted, if that's Bob Kane, I believe it's right Bob Kane. That debuted in 1947. Mm-hmm. That was the dress Catwoman. But you look at Michelle Pfeiffer, and I mean, you look at Tim Burton, totally ripped Miss Fury.
Right. Even Bruce
for the Catwoman. I mean, look at it right there.
Bruce Timm's character design on the second run of Batman the Animated Series when they redid the character designs.
Yep.
Totally influenced.
Yeah, and it's an amazing story because you see the story arc of how Marla. Look at me, I'm on she mode. I'm wearing too many hats. I've been in a long time, old bean. I've been inside a long time.
You wouldn't have it any other way, Billy. Let's be honest.
Right. So, but the thing is that Miss Fury, she goes on these adventures and she ends up in Brazil. But there's such amazing things that happen with her of how progressive and daring Tarpé Mills was at the time, because you have her, I mean, and of course there's some interesting scenes of her fighting with her arch nemesis, the Baroness Erica von Kamp, who's also in the story, in their lingerie, which is kind of fun to see back in 1941. But she also does things like she ends up adopting a child. And she's a single mother now living in New York City who's supposed to be the socialite, but she just has to battle, fight for her country and fighting, the Nazis and gangsters who are associated with the Nazis and all. And it's really daring. And Niall, I don't know if you had the image of Erica von Kamp with you there. So this is Erica von Kamp, who's a reluctant Nazi spy. And she gets caught double-crossed by these gangsters who she double-crosses, apparently. And to let everyone know that she's a Nazi, they literally brand her with a hot iron, a swastika in her forehead.
Very subtle.
It's some
very Inglorious Bastards.
Yeah.
Yes, 70 years before Inglorious Bastards.
Yeah, we're setting the Tarantino verse.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So what's cool about this is that now Marla ends up having Erica help her. She ends up going to Paris. She ends up meeting her contact, which is Whiffy, who is another character that is Tarpé Mills' staple mate. Now, interesting about Whiffy was a man, but Whiffy was transgender. So this is also the first transgender character in comics history too. But he was the head of the French Resistance, or she was head of the French Resistance, and just wild that they had that. So. Whiffy is her contact in Paris. She ends up meeting the Baroness on the top of the Empire of the Eiffel Tower, and Marla attacks her because of their history. Now, our story, and I left this out because I am so excited about it. Our story takes place in 1944, the summer of 1944, and if you know Miss Fury history, it looks like June took a break in the summer of 1944. I mean, she'd been working on this strip and the comics now that Timely's doing the comic version of it since 1941. So she's working on this for over 3 years, and she needs a break. I guess she takes her summer off. She was very popular, very beautiful woman. all society adored her, and by this time everyone knew she was a woman because the strip was just so popular. Mm-hmm. But our story fits perfectly into that summer of 1944, and that's when it takes place. It does
That's really cool. Billy, were you familiar with the history of the character as you were starting to get into this, or before?
No, before. I fell in love with this character in the early 90s when I started collecting comics again. Mm-hmm. And I remember talking to Gary Cohn that, my God, I would love for us to do this book. We should bring her back. We should bring this character back. But it's like, there's a lot of legal stuff. Let's not even worry about that. But now, thanks to Dynamite, that we're able to do that. But there's Marla. There's Eza. Eza is a Brazilian freedom fighter because Marla ends up in Brazil right before our story, and our story actually takes place right after Brazil. That's her shooting some dude with a 45.
Well, what's a fun fact though is June modeled Miss Fury after herself.
Yes.
So this is June in these stories.
That's also that's a glorious piece of pop art right there.
Oh, right there. That's gorgeous.
I just love the color separation, the dots and everything. If you look really closely at it, it's just amazing. And you can tell that June doesn't shoot guns the way that Miss Fury's holding the pistol, because she's not her. You don't shoot a gun with your knuckle. You do it with the tip of your finger.
Now Billy, before, if I'm correct, if you get into too much detail on your story here, if people want to catch up on this, you can get all the prior comic strips, can't you?
Yes, there's an amazing series of books right here. I have one right here, and where's my other one?
The one that you just showed is from Library of American Comics. Our friend Dean Mullaney put it together.
Yep, Dean Mullaney with Trina Robbins. I have mine here, and it's the Bible. I mean, they lovingly restored all the Sunday strips. And this is all these are my references. If you see here, you see all my little tabs.
And the great thing about the Library of American Comics stuff, there's always essays to put this stuff in context. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they're just really beautifully produced. It's really fantastic stuff. Billy, I got to cut out, as we discussed earlier. So I wanted to say congratulations on the great start on this. You're already over 1,400. And Joe, I wish you guys a lot of luck with this project. I think it's going to be phenomenal. I look forward to covering it.
You're $60 away from $2,000, gentlemen.
All right.
Awesome. And we got a super chat from Kevin Freer who asks, why did you decide to put it out through Dynamite instead of Crusade Comics, since she's a public domain character?
Well, if I may answer this question, Joe, Dynamite was able to because they had published it. There were some legal things with the trademark, and they ended up spending a lot of money to trademark the character. There was another big publisher that may or may not have a character with a similar name that they kind of negotiated with, and they had to pay some money to them. So I think it's just all that Dynamite has invested in it. Mm-hmm. And again, that they have the Miss Fury, the trademark, to the title and all. And I just love working with them. And I couldn't think of a better publisher than that. With Crusade Comics, I like to think of Crusade as a boutique publisher. Mm-hmm. So I want to keep Crusade with she. We're already this year we'll be putting out 2 more Indiegogo campaigns. And then next year we're doing 4. And that's all basically primarily she and Zombie Sama. So if I can just write another comic book and on this character I have, and have the massive resources that come with the experience that Joe has and their entire staff. And I've never met a more passionate staff than Dynamite with this small company, but every email, everyone's on it. I also love that we're getting hashtags now when someone signs off. Nikki sent me an email, and his hashtag says Fury Strong. You know what I mean? Which I was doing, and everyone's starting doing it, and it's really cool to see that we're just coming together as this amazing team, and it's a joy. I want to be on this project. I want to be a writer. With she, I'm a writer, artist. What's the other promoter? Publisher, promoter.
Impresario.
Thank you, impresario. Thank you for that. I always wanted to be an impresario. I'm also the box taper upper and
Shipping clerk.
So I guess I'm part of the art department, the fulfillment department, the R&D department, everything but the billing department, because Debbie does that.
And I think that there's a thing with characters of this era which may have fallen out of ownership to some extent, that we have worked with other characters like this, and when you bring them back, it's not just a matter of bringing back a PD character and then republishing it or doing something new. There's a lot of energy and effort and legal stuff that goes in, as Billy mentioned, but also the level of talent that we're able to bring to things. When we did the Superpowers series, which also had some characters in it that were available for public use, we had Alex Ross working on that stuff.
Alex Ross and Jim Kruger.
Yeah, exactly.
How insane!
Brilliant.
So there's a different. Thank you. So there's a different level of. It's not as easy as just saying, "Oh, this character is PD." I don't think that's what the chatter was suggesting. But there's a lot involved, and there's a lot involved in maintaining a character, keeping a library of published material, and then keeping an active library of new material. And when we first talked to Billy about this was originally going to be a periodical 2 years ago, maybe, Billy, maybe a year ago.
2 years ago, not quite 2 years ago.
And really, for a variety of reasons, scheduling.
See you later, JC.
Some scheduling issues with the artists that we were working with, and just some complications that arise in the world of publishing. We put it to the side, and it was really in those last 2 years, less than 2 years, that that material via crowdfunding has exploded. So the opportunity to work on this with Billy in this format and with this platform didn't really exist 2 years ago, I would say. Certainly not to the level that it exists now.
Yeah. And what I love about it as well is that everything worked out, right, honey, with this, how it worked out that Maria Laura came in.
I love Maria, but I need to just interject one little thing. And there she is. Yeah. Look at her.
What?
All I now do is the billing?
No, I said I do everything. I'm doing everything but the billing.
So that's all I do?
No, I said no. You do everything.
Because if all I do is the billing, I'm
dun,
really
dun,
happy.
dun.
You're right, Billy.
No, that's not.
Billy said
is the billing.
She is the freaking heart, Billy. She is the heart.
Billy said you also cook.
Oh shit! Dr. Blevins.
This is
while you're here.
This is really taking a turn.
Well, I think Debbie.
It's the Billy Debbie show, Joe. You should know that by
now. Joe had asked me before, and JC, about why I wanted Miss Fury. What is it about Miss Fury? And I was trying to explain, and you're more articulate to me. Then maybe do you think you could tell them why and how I feel about Miss Fury? How about this
Billy?
On this pertinent subject, Billy happens to have a thing for strong women. And he is the quintessential strong woman, drawn by a strong woman. So
he just wants a woman that can stand beside him.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, that's what it is.
No, I love this character. I
know
this
you
character.
Do. I do. It was. If there was ever anything meant to be, it was this. You and this character, absolutely.
And I just love being a part of the lore. And we got to meet her family at San Diego this year. Her surviving family.
Yes, they were
amazing. Awesome.
I'm going to go back to only doing the billing.
Okay.
Bye, Deb.
Thanks.
Bye. Bye, Deb.
Bye, Deb.
Bye, everybody.
I'm in trouble.
No.
Scala, how far away are you from me? About 2 hours. I'll be there in 90 minutes.
Billy,
you want chicken nuggets?
Yes,
Billy,
I do.
Yeah,
Billy, that storm that started here down outside of Philadelphia when we started this live stream seems to have traveled very quickly up 95 and over the Long Island Expressway and into the
right
heart.
down to the South Shore of Long Island
and like into your room
like an Italy, Polish, Lithuanian, German storm. It is.
Oh, is she Lithuanian?
Yeah, are you Lithuanian?
Yeah.
No, my wife is probably about 50% Lithuanian.
Oh yeah, She's what is she? Lukasavic, Lukasavic, and Lukosius.
Okay.
And Augustine. I think those are that's the Lithuanian side of her.
Whoa,
Yeah,
what
my
a
wife-
coincidence. My wife's Sicilian.
No.
What a coincidence! I'm all alone.
That's fun.
Anyway, but I got to meet so we were at San Diego this year, and who showed up at our table? I think Trina Robbins brought them around. We got to have lunch with yeah, we had breakfast with Trina Robbins. It was wonderful, and I told her my story because I wanted her blessing. And at the end, she's like, I like you. I wasn't sure about this one, but I took the meeting with you, but I had my reservations, Billy. I have to be honest, but I really like you. So she signed it. She signed one of my big, one of the Bible books here, and we got pictures with her and all, and it was just great. But then a little later, she brought over the surviving members of Tarpé Mills' family, and I sat there with her nephew, Bill. I talked to him and I told him the story, and within 4 or 5 minutes of the story, he was crying, and he was like, I want you to do this book. You guys have to find a way to do this book. And that's really what kicked it off with Nikki and I then talking like, we've got to do this. But how important this is, and we'll get into what the Joy Division was as well, but also the subject matter to carry on the legacy of June Tarpé Mills. This book has to be in a prestige format. Joe, I really feel it's got to be a self-contained, 100+ page,
Yeah, I think I think a couple of things to mention. I see that we've jumped up to $2,500, which I think is great.
Oh, they're halfway there.
Yeah. And I just want to let potential backers know that this thing is going to be a self-contained graphic novel. Originally, we had talked about periodicals, but again, I think using this platform and using what's behind this platform is going to give the end consumer a more satisfying experience. I think listen, I grew up on periodicals. I think periodicals are great, but an OGN is great too. So, and that also this is the only place they're going to get it. Unlike some other stuff that we've done, where we've crowdfunded a book or a project and then made it available through Diamond and through our other distribution sources. We had a discussion and decision early on to say, you know what, we're going to make this just for Indiegogo and just for backers. I know that down the road, way down the road, you might be able to get it somewhere else, but for right now, this is the place. And it's self-contained, and you got some amazing options that we also wouldn't be able to do if we were offering this, to consumers via traditional distribution sources with the multiple covers and the racy cover and all that stuff. So also the merchandise. There's no way. I'm not trying to shill it because if anyone knows me, they know that I'm not a sales guy. I'm a content guy, not a sales guy. But in this form and fashion, for all the stuff that you have access to in one place, it's kind of unprecedented, right? Yeah. I mean, you can't buy like this anywhere at once, So it's pretty cool, and obviously we appreciate all of the support. I think we have a retail package on there, so we are helping out our retail partners, in these early days of making this exclusive to Indiegogo. But again, not to oversell it, but if you want it, this is the place to get it. And it's not a digital thing, and it's not a periodical thing. It's its own thing, which I think is cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it really is. I also show that again with the subject matter of the Joy Division, and this is a Golden Age adventure. So, and it is a dark story. It really is a very dark story, but it's also a very heroic story. And I just love the idea that it's also and it is right with the times today, because June Tarpé Mills was such a trailblazer. I mean, this woman was literally fearless. She was only 5'2", 100 pounds, and nobody messed with her.
Right. And
that's what I love about that. As you could see from the darling wife, my better half. I love working with confident artists in their ability, in their abilities, and that's what I found when I met Maria Laura Sanapo. Oh my God! I mean, she is just a confident, artist. She's confident in her abilities, confidence in her work, and she's very passionate and very picky about what she takes on. And the same thing with CC Delacruz. I mean, look at that. That is showing now what if we go back to that page, Maria also bought the Sensational Sundays, the Miss Fury book. And that image right there captures how June Tarpé Mills drew Marla Drake come 3 years after she first started. She was, even the character Marla Drake became far more confident in herself and her abilities, and she got darker. You know, she wasn't this flippant socialite that only cared about materialistic things. She really became a true badass. You know what I mean? And I love that Maria has brought that over into the new book. I mean, look at her saving a child from a burning building. And here she's meeting her ex-fiance, Gary Hale, excuse me, who plays a big part in the story as well. He's a P-47 pilot. So,
and I'll speak to, you know, I think a lot of people when they back projects, they're not sure, you know, what's the reliability of the creative team. You know, Billy's written the scripts, Maria's drawing them, and Maria's been working with us for a couple of years now on a regular basis, delivering good work on a regular schedule, no flakiness. And this thing is going to get done, and it's going to be in your hands. Again, I'm not attempting to shill it in any way, but I think that's an important thing to note, because you never know, you know, I gave my money and am I going to get my book and all that? And yeah, you're going to get your book, you know, which I think is important to know. And it's going to be gorgeous. You know, those pages were, you know, there's a handful of pages here, obviously, to promo. Can't show you, you know, the whole thing, but, you know, pages here to promo. And, you know, Maria's not afraid to embrace the sexiness of the character and also to embrace the realities of the world around her. And that's really the thing that can be missing from a lot of books that get written off as being overly sexualized or what have you. But here it's a very beautiful marriage of both. And
Billy, you have a dynamic female creative team on this project.
Yeah, it's all females. It's all women.
You have Maria is the lead artist on this.
Yep.
Right,
Yeah.
and then you have Cece, who's
Colorist.
handling all the colors.
Yep. Then we have Mindy Lopkin, who is our designer and our letterer on it. So she's doing all the designing pages. And then we have Asha Kishna, who did a great Zombie Sama cover for us. And Asha is just amazing. And she loves the character. And we got Asha to do a cover for us. She's and look how gorgeous it is. She's a Dutch artist. And she is just amazing. And she's captured that sophistication of Marla Drake, but it's also got this badassness to it. If you look at Miss Fury standing there. And someone had mentioned that curvy women, you don't see them in comics anymore. And there's one thing that really bothers the hell out of me is when they reinvent a character or they redo a character, that they take away all what the character was. This book is fitting directly into the continuity of the existing Miss Fury stories. And Marla Drake was a very small. She was small, but she was a very, you know, sexy 40s starlet type of, you know, that's taken right off of a June Tarpé Mills illustration. And, you know, you have to keep the characters. Gary Hale is 6'2" with dark hair and blue eyes, you know, very Clark Kent-esque. And we have to use that. You know, that is also taken from a June Tarpé Mills illustration. So you look how again fearless she was, this woman, and
in the early 40s, right?
Yeah, I wanted to comment on when Billy was talking about, you know, what was going on during the creation and the obstacles that June was facing and the obstacles that the character would have been facing. You know, we're not in a unique time now that we weren't in then for creating strong characters, creating, you know, facing adversity, facing challenges. And, you know, they rose to the occasion for sure. And they, you know, while there may not have been as much weight on certain things during those times, there was weight on a lot of other things during those times. But from a creative standpoint, there was a lot of risks being taken, and the character is strong. The character, was respected by your creator, and is being respected by the creative team now. It's not prurient, and there's nothing wrong with being. I always go back to Spinal Tap, where Nigel looks at the camera, and goes, what's wrong with being sexy when they're being when they're being called sexist, because he doesn't get it. But there is a distinction. There absolutely is a distinction between being sexist and being sexy, and there's nothing wrong with being sexy.
But I would love when someone says, "I'd like for you to tell Marla Drake," someone to tell her. That she should change who she is.
Right, exactly. And she's a strong character that took no shit. I assume we can swear on here. Was very much ahead of the time. And I think the fact that she was an archetype for a lot of other characters that went down the line and took no shit from their male co-stars in their comic series like Catwoman and Batman. She was a template for that. And without that, who knows what that character redux would have been. You don't know if they didn't have that archetype to work off of. In a lot of these cases, you wouldn't necessarily see those tropes that you see now, and you wouldn't have the strong characters to that extent that you have now. So
and the thing too is that a character like Marla Drake, and if you see her, and I want to talk about the fashion as well, because it's a really important part of the story that I didn't even know if you know, Joe. But Jeremis, can you discuss the cameo part in the comic may look like? Well, if you pledge for that perk, it'll look like you.
And I think we're
the story.
and I think, and I know Billy was about to talk about, so I just want to say a couple of real quick things. But one, in that, I think we're trying to get that perk where you get the art, but don't quote me on that. I thought that there was some discussion going back and forth to make sure that when you get drawn in, that the art is part of that. But if it's not, the look for the details on the page. And I just want to speak real quick. One, from Dynamite, I want to thank Billy for everything that he's done. And I'm not bowing out here. I want to get to this before I forget it. I want to thank Billy for everything that he's done for this. As I mentioned earlier, it has been a long road to get here, a very short road in the grand scheme of things. But when we started talking about this as a periodical, and then stopping it as a periodical, and then picking the discussion back up and getting it going here, some time has passed. So I want to thank Billy for sticking with it, and for adapting to it. And actually, I think probably guiding us towards this in terms of offering it as a crowdfunder. But I also want some of the unsung heroes. I'm not actually the editor on the book. I want to give a shout out to Matt Idelson, who is the actual editor on the book. Matt's a long-time veteran of the business. He's been doing this as long as I have, maybe a little longer, because we're about the same age. But he was doing it for DC for a long time. He's been doing it for us for about 5 or 6 years. And also not to mention the creative team, but I want to talk about the people that put the Kickstarter together. Jim Kahoric and Jay Spence, Vincent Faust, who runs our PR and marketing. I mean, these guys, and Billy mentioned it earlier, and his time involved in this has been equal to everyone else's. And I know he probably is thinking, why did I sign up for all this? But I think part of him loves it no matter what. But all those guys, Jim and Jay and Vince and Nick and everyone on the Dynamite side, not to pat ourselves on the back, but getting something launched like this, and anyone that's done it, they know it's a gigantic undertaking.
Yeah.
And those are the guys that are all unsung, that put all of this together and made sure all of those tiers and made sure all of those particulars work. And thanks to you guys for this promotion and getting this thing launching and off the ground in this live stream. That's a huge part of this as well. So,
thank you.
Nice.
No, you guys are fantastic, and that's and that's why I wanted, again, that's why I wanted to work with you guys, because Unlucky Skydiver, thank you so much, is again just the passion that everyone has on this project. Like Jim Kahoric, we would throw something out there, and he's like, what I think, what if we did this? I think we could change this up a little bit. And just that, hey, $3,000.
Yeah, nice.
Perfect.
Let's see. It's 7. I don't know if we're gonna do 5 by 8, but I think we need to back this thing, right?
If you can, guys, share on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, whatever you have. Let's see if we can get to the goal in 15 minutes. Let's see if we can push this through.
Hey, Joe, I have a question for you.
Sure.
Have you seen The Hunters on Amazon?
No, I have
the Nazi.
The Pacino series.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So, yeah, I have not, but I'm familiar with what it is.
Okay, so in the comic book store, this isn't giving anything away, but in the comic book store, when I was watching it through, they have a Miss Fury poster up on the wall in the comic book store. Did you know anything about that?
No. It's we have a relationship with Amazon in the sense that they are producing obviously The Boys. So when it comes to the stuff that they're doing with The Boys TV show, we have discussions with them about promotion and their San Diego plans last year and what could we do to promote the series, cross promote the comic and all that. But I think that all of the streaming platforms, and probably Amazon more so maybe than the others, are a little bit more attuned. The people running the shows are a little bit more attuned to the pop culture world when it comes to comic books and the visuals, and obviously we've put some stuff out before. What was the image? Was it from this, or because we had
it was the later version, right, Billy?
Yeah, it was one of one of the '90s ones.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't yours. It wasn't a Dynamite book. It was one of the.
It was supposed to take place in the '70s. In '77 is when the show's supposed to take place. But that's actually someone. Even if they may have got the time right, that's someone in probably set design or production that's actually smart and saying, okay, here's a character from the era that's related to our Nazi hunting show. And actually fought zombie or Nazis. I don't know why I said zombie. Sorry.
Well, and I saw someone in the thread. It's funny because I saw someone in the thread, and I'm not going to get political in any way, shape, or form because that's death in this day and age. But I saw someone in the thread say, punching actual Nazis, and yes, punching actual Nazis, and in the 40s, punching actual Nazis, which again, talking about the context and talking about the setting of what we can do in that era. And, for characters like this, punching Nazis, killing Nazis. Someone mentioned Inglourious. We were talking about Inglourious Bastards earlier. I don't know what everyone's thoughts on that are, but it's a great movie.
It's a great movie. What a great movie.
Exactly. And a great feeling to punch a Nazi in World War II, right?
Oh, yeah. And we do a lot more than that.
Yeah,
especially what Marla does, what she does.
Right.
But she has to team up with with her enemy, the Baroness.
Right.
And there's a really important scene, and to lead into when they do meet, when she does meet the Baroness atop the Eiffel Tower, who the Baroness is going to take her behind enemy lines into Germany, and she launches and attacks her, and they had this fight, and then she says. She takes her, she grabs her by the hair, and she lifts her hair, and she says to Whiffy, "Look at her. She's a Nazi agent." And she lifts her up and shows the swastika that's been branded in her hair. And then the Baroness says, "Yes, but they also gave me this." And then she rips open her dress and shows the scar, Feld which means field whore, which is what the Nazis did to the women of the Joy Division. Right. They forced her to become the madam of the Joy Division. And there's a really cool thing in 1943, in the 1943 series, the last time you see Erika von Kampf is that she is taken away by a Colonel Prussia, back to Germany because she is this reluctant Nazi agent. The Colonel is on the outs with the German, with Hitler, and then because he screws up so bad and he feels the way to get back to the good grace is to bring back this rogue agent. And you don't see Erika or you don't see Colonel Prussia for the rest of the series. I think Erika returns in 1949 or something like that. But so what we have, though, is that Colonel Prussia is now the head of the Joy Division, and Marla Drake is charged with capturing him and bringing him back to be charged for war crimes because the war is coming to a close. But while she's there, though, she ends up finding the women of the Joy Division, and she ends up releasing them and rescuing them and dressing them in costumes similar to her, and they become known as the Black Furies, and then they turn the tables on the Germans, and they become like this female Inglourious Bastards. Speaking of that. So
and hey, let me ask you, Billy, because I kind of alluded to it without getting into it and deep diving this thing into a 2020 political discussion. But when you're dealing with the subject matter of World War II,
yes,
and for all intents and purposes, things were a lot more black and white in those days. There wasn't a lot of gray. I think looking back on it, there is a tremendous amount of gray, just like there's in everything. But in the context of the time, bad guys were bad, good guys were good, right? Do you, looking at it now, going and writing that era, do you feel that it's easier, the black and white scenario, or do you inject a little bit of gray on either side just to keep things interesting?
Well, there's really, in all honesty, there's not a lot of gray when it comes to the Nazis,
right?
But you have gray though. But with Marla June put this in with Erica, because Erica the Baroness was supposedly the sophisticated socialite as well from Germany, but she wasn't. She was a poor woman that was under the guise of this. And I then instilled that her mother ran a brothel. She was raised in a brothel. So that's why she's a natural to become the madam of the Joy Division. But what happens is that there's also one of the other major bad guys, and probably the major enemy of Marla Drake in June's original storyline, was General Bruno. Now, General Bruno was a Nazi, but he wasn't a Nazi. He was a German general. But his ultimate goal, he hated Hitler, and he wanted to kill Hitler, but he wanted to become the head of Germany. But he was a starch anti-Nazi, and now he's in our story too. You know what I mean? As he's in our story as well, I can't give it away, but he's a major role in the story. Yeah. And someone had said about the So are there some Jewish girls in the Black Furies? All right. Well, Herrenberg, let me tell the story of what the Joy Division was. When the Germans first started to go into when the Germans started taking over all of Europe, they would go into the Jewish neighborhoods, and they would basically wall them in and turn them into ghettos, the ones that they didn't cart off to the camps. As the war effort really picked up, they needed more and more slave labor, so they started picking the women now out. They mostly went for the men in the beginning. So they started to pick the women, these Jewish women, out of the ghettos and bringing them to the camps. Now, these women were all hearted in 40 and 8 by cars, which is a 40 and 8 by car is a kind of car that they've been using since before World War I, where it could hold 40 soldiers or 8 horses. They would pack up to 200 people in these 40 and 8 cars, the Germans. So they would get to the camps, and they get to a camp like Dachau. And the women would get out. And the Jewish women, there would be one woman there in the center, and this one woman would pick the women as they came off the train. Some of them as young as 11, 12 years old. And if the women looked one way, they were sent to the left. And they went through the gate, which had a sign that said, "Work will set you free." The ones that the woman that was in charge deemed more comely, more attractive, they were sent to the camp in the right, and that was called Camp Joy. Camp Joy was a stark difference to the work camp. The work camp was dingy and horrible. As you've seen, we've all seen these horrible pictures of the women with the pajamas on and the men in the striped pajamas and things like that. That they treated them worse than animals. The women who were unfortunate enough to be deemed beautiful were sent to Camp Joy. There, these women were dressed, they were fed, they were coiffed, they were taught manners, they were taught things like the womanly things. Again, some of them as young as 11 years old, and then they were forced them into unpaid prostitution for the SS. And what these women suffered through was a fate worse than death, because they were repeatedly raped. They were, and if they went against them, if they lashed out at their rapists, which a lot of them did, they were publicly taken out and flogged and sodomized, and the things that were done to these women in front of everyone at the camps was horrific. So my story is with the Joy Division is, again, Marla is sent to capture Colonel Prussia, the head of the Joy Division, and because he must be brought on war crimes because the world has to see this. You know, the world has to know what they've done. Erica, on the other hand, has also been forced to become the madam of this, and things have been happening to Erica. So Erica will ally herself with Marla, but Erica wants to kill him. And it's basically the friction between the two women. But then what happens to Marla is, if you see the Feldherr, the one particular cover we have, which is taken from the book called the House of Dolls. I don't know if you have that image now. Did I send you that image?
Yep, I'll pop it back up.
It's the House of Dolls image. It was a book that was written by a survivor of the Holocaust, and but they would carve that in these women's chests. They would brand them in it. In Marla's case, it's carved in. So it's a very important subject. But again, we want to treat it to that they do get their comeuppance, and as I said, the women of the Black Furies do become they do become a female and glorious bastard. So,
and as you're going, I see people in the chat here talking about history, and obviously, Billy, you feel very passionately, and you also have a good sense of history in terms of the things that you bring to your stories and the things that you find engage you as a creator, which is great, because I think that's missing in a lot of ways. And I'm thinking back as you were talking about that to comics I read as a kid, and I might have been like, the internet wasn't around, and I would have been like, if I'd had the internet around and I'd been able to look stuff up, I would have learned a lot more, because there were writers then that were infusing things in their stories that maybe were not super overt, but were definitely there, historical touchstones, and especially when you dealt with World War II era characters like Captain America and stuff.
Yeah.
But it's cool, to be able to do this in this form and have all of this reality that infuses your story, all with, some cool superhero tropes thrown on top, So
yeah,
EVS.
And that's our goal. That's such a great logo too. Hell yeah. I'm going on EVS's show. I'll be on Comic Artist Pro Secrets in an hour.
Nice.
So thank you so much for that. Thank you for having me on, brother. I appreciate it.
So I guess we know when we're done here then.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go ahead and get out of here, but thank you very much for letting me come on and be here for this awesome launch. I mean, Billy is super excited about this. We've heard him mention about how secretive it is, and I mean, like, it is. I mean, it definitely is a passion project, and I mean, what a better person to tell the story.
So 100% agreed. I mean, there is not a better person to combine all of these elements than Billy. And why it took us so long, especially as long as you've known Nick longer than I've known him, to kind of put something creatively together like this. Although you've also always done your own thing, so but it's a good time for this. And I wanted to actually ask you, Billy, creatively, because you've been at the forefront. Obviously, Ethan jumped in here, and he's been at the forefront of kind of controlling your own destiny. You both have controlled your own destiny in different ways. Obviously, you've been a self-publisher. You've had your own publishing, your own publishing business. Ethan started with a very small publisher and owning his own character, and then going in the mainstream. You both have worked in the mainstream, but you both have come, and a lot of other people have as well. Sean Murphy recently, and a whole bunch of other people have come over to crowdfunding, right?
Yeah. And
it's really like the next wave. And I say this as a guy that earns his paycheck from a publisher, right?
Yeah.
But all of these things still exist. Comic stores still exist. They're getting back to existing. Distribution and all of the traditional ways that we as comic book publishers have provided content to people still exist, but this exists too. And it seems like everything can exist in some form or fashion along those same lines, but creatively it gives you much more control of everything. As a self-publisher, is this any different than what you've been doing for the last, 25 years?
Well, I got to tell you, I love it. And what I love about it, and I see that EBS might be losing power. All right, well, if you do, if not, we'll do it when you get back on. It's all good. This is very positive. This is kicking ass's campaign, and thank you for having me on, buddy. I appreciate it. What I love about this, Joe, is that the way the industry is, and we all know, we had Steve Jeppe on a few weeks ago talking about the distribution wars when Marvel decided to buy their own distributor and distribute their own books,
Right.
Which really put really I don't want to say it put a nail in the coffin of the independent comics movement, but it was a great hindrance.
Did not help.
Yeah, it did not help. And we were really kicking ass. But again, like you had Chaos Comics, you had Abstract Studios, you had Cartoon Books, you had Crusade Comics. You had all of us in the previous book, when the retailers would get their book to be able to order their comics, we're on pages 25, 26, 15. You know, Terry Moore is probably on page 3 or 4 of the catalog. Once that distribution war started, that Diamond then, in order to retain the major publishers, they actually put them all in the beginning of previews. So by the time it got to a smaller, self-publishers, smaller publishers, boutique publishers, we're now on page 325 of the book, of the Diamond catalog. Mm-hmm. And the retailers don't have the money for it by then. Yep. What I love about this, though, is that there are twofolds. One, I've always loved to engage the public. I've always loved that. I know that the people out there watching right now have changed my life. I'd be painting bridges right now in a storm right now in New York City.
Yeah. That wouldn't make any sense, Billy, in a storm.
Yeah, in a storm.
Well, it's storming, so I'd be up there and I'd have to climb down. So, but I realize how they changed my life. I know it. I appreciate them, and I've always engaged them. I love the one-on-one. I love most of my best friends today are people I met, not only publishers and editors, but or writers and artists, but also fans. You know, I met Niall and Blevins right here. That they read my books. And we started hanging out. I'm like, I love this guy. What do you do for dinner?
Yeah, right? I was trying to get a refund for like 2 years. I'm like, hey, can I get some refunds here?
Yeah.
So
then we hit it off.
But I love that. So I love the one-on-one engagement, and it does give us a chance. You know what I mean? It gives us a chance to sell our books because, unfortunately, the way things are right now, and especially with COVID-19, with that happened, now the comic industry was in big trouble as it is, and to get to a point that really infuriates me is that after a 2-week shutdown, you have some of the major publishers telling their creators that the engine that runs their company, and some of these companies have made hundreds of millions of dollars, they give them an order of pencils down.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? And that shows just how little they deem their creative talent. Do you know what I mean? But that's not that way with self-publishers. All of us, and even you guys, though, as an independent publisher, you didn't have pencils down.
No, we kept. You know, it was unprecedented for sure. Nobody saw it. You know, listen, nobody saw it coming. Nobody was prepared.
Right, the world didn't see it.
We kept things rolling, and I think for anyone, and not to interrupt you, Billy, but I just wanted to add that, yes, we're publishing this book, but I think I think everyone that's watching and everyone that knows you knows why you're the person that's promoting the book, because, while it's a on a business sense, it's a slightly, but our relationship is a little different than a normal publisher creative thing. On this, you're the voice of this because it makes sense. People want to support you. We're here to provide the materials to make sure that this story gets told, but it's your story to tell,
Right.
And I don't want to, it seems like I naturally am able to lapse into a shill mode, but, anyone that's giving money, you're supporting Billy, you're supporting us, but you're supporting Billy, you're supporting the story. So don't think of it as this, why am I giving money to this publisher? Shouldn't they be able to publish this? Because I know that when I look at some crowdfunding stuff, I often feel skeptical. I think there was a big to-do with some movie guy that made, he put something on Kickstarter, and it's like, why can't that guy just fund it? But it's not necessarily always about that.
Yeah.
It's about reaching people directly, and it's about feeling engaged. I know that the limited amount of stuff that I've given money to crowdfunding, I felt very good about it. I felt like this thing exists because I helped give it money. And in this form and fashion, you're supporting this story, and you're supporting the creative team that's telling this story. So I don't want to belabor it. I think we're doing fine, but I just want to make sure that people know that this is slightly different than a company going on and just, putting a book out there just to earn its, $5,000 and then put it everywhere. It's different than that,
And Billy, let's touch base on this too, because you and I talked about this earlier today.
Yeah, I want everyone to know that first and foremost, Comics Exposed, this is a Dynamite book. I wrote this story 2 years ago. It's just the timing with the case that she should have been out, and I'll tell you why it's not out. Now, we are starting fulfilling in the next few weeks. But in all honesty, the COVID-19 really screwed us up, but that also gave me time to look at the book. Now, we have 48 pages of story and art. Of those 48 pages of story and art, of the finishes, 25 of them could be better. And I literally had them all redone from scratch. And I felt that and as Jeff Vaughn had said, had told me to say, it's after 15 years is the first time anyone's getting She.
Yeah.
How many times do I get a second chance to make a first impression?
Yeah,
and I want it to be the best it can be. I could have had this book out in March. If I had it out in March, I would be on the second campaign already. The way the book is doing now, we're almost at we're over $174,000 on it. That's me losing that money if I had another campaign. But that's not what's important. What's important is that I want to tell the best story possible with the best art team. We've got a great art team. If you saw the art that's up there now, those are some of the redone pages and was finished by my pal Gardiano Lima, and they're just stunning. And this is what She is about, and this is why I got into comics, because I didn't get into comic books because to make money. I love making money. I do it for business now. Obviously it's a business, but I didn't get into it because I wanted to make a movie. I didn't create She because I felt it's going to be a movie character. This is my passion. I've loved comics since I was a kid. This is all I've ever wanted to do, aside maybe design sets for movies or something like that. But this is all I've ever wanted to do. And if you guys watch, we had Brian Polito on the show a few weeks back. I had asked him, what was your plan B? And with Brian Polito's like, there was no plan B. And the same thing with him.
Yeah.
There was no plan B. Everyone says, what would you be doing if you didn't do comics? I'm like, there was never going to be there wasn't going to be any doubt I was going to do comics. This is what I was going to do. I didn't know how long it was going to take me to do it. I was doing freelance work. I was a security guard. I was designing baby clothes at Macy's. I was designing, T-shirts, things like that. As it didn't matter how long it took me to do this and make this career, this was going to be my career. Yeah. And I didn't do it for movies or for fame or anything. I wanted to tell the story. And again, it's just too important to me to give you guys that are taking money out of your own pocket, and Joe, getting back to ordering, directly to the fans. You know what I mean? That you're selling directly to the fans, you're engaging the fans, and you guys deserve the very best. Yeah. And if it costs me so much more money to do that, to have to redraw and color 25 pages, I'm going to do it. And if you don't like it, you're angry with me, I don't know what to tell you. I'm sorry, but I'm doing for what I feel is your best.
The right decision. It was the right decision.
Definitely.
I want to throw in there.
I love you guys for it. Comics Exposed.
Well, your printer shutting down, I think, it was really kind of, look, it's horrible what's going on, I think, but with the printer shutting down, you and I were going through this stuff. I mean, I think it all started with our conversation, Billy, and we were just looking at some of the pages that were coming, and it was like, man, it was
the right decision.
It was the right decision. And you had the opportunity to.
I just want to add that I've been doing this not as long as Billy, but I've been doing it a long time. And I want to say that there's a handful of creative people, whether they're writers, artists. I found in general it's more the writer artist, or the writer who also maybe does art as well. But there's a handful of people that will pay attention to details that the end reader will never notice in a million years.
Oh, I know.
That's right.
I know.
Ever.
Yeah.
I was proofing a book earlier today, and there was something in there that nobody will ever notice. And I told them, you got to tweak this because I see it, and it's got to be right. To have that level of dedication, it takes time. Yes. And on a monthly grind, that stuff often gets left by the wayside, and you get your no prizes, famously. And I still use that excuse to some extent. I think it's a brilliant. I think the no prize is a brilliant excuse, for a mistake in a comic. It gets no better, right? Yep. But very few people will spend that level of detail. And if you're buying it directly from the creator that can give that level of detail, just give it a little extra time. There's so much going on in the world right now. If it takes a little time and Billy wants it to be a little better and he's obsessive about it, that's a good thing. There's nothing wrong with that. But again, I could say a handful, I might be able to count them on both hands, but I don't think I could count them on more than that care that much. That's for sure.
I mean, here it is in a nutshell. Like, if you ever have any doubt, all you have to do is just look at the very first 3 words of this campaign. Billy Tucci delivers.
Yes.
You need to recognize that. That man always delivers, and he delivers quality product every single time.
It's funny you mentioned that, because I was before, when we were backstage.
And if you purchase in the next 20 minutes.
Hey, no, you're receiving Miss Fury keychain. All right, Miss Fury.
Hey, this Miss Fury card.
Yeah.
When we were backstage, I was thinking, they could just be called Billy Tucci Presents. It could just be ... and you could just fill in the blanks, right?
I mean, like, in this world where a lot of the female stories are being written by females, and they kind of want to stick with it. Like, I just got to say, man, like Billy loves this story, like he loves this property so much. He's gone above and beyond to make sure he talks to all the people and let them know the stories ahead of time. Like, man, there is never going to be, other than the original, I don't think there'll ever be another quality book and like this unless Billy produces it.
We've got a great. I've got a great idea for a sequel.
Yeah,
Joe.
Awesome.
And I want the Green Lantern and the Lone Ranger in it.
And the Shadow.
I see here that we've crossed 4K, and I just wanted to know.
800 away from 5.
I do have to go. I'll see you guys later. Thank you again.
All right, beloved.
Yes, congratulations.
Oh, you're
TJ
less than 400 away from reaching goal.
Well,
my out is when you reach goal. So I'm sticking until when you reach goal.
Thank you, Joe. Let's try to get goal before I go on Comic Artist Pro Secret.
Well, here's the funny thing, Billy. Here's the funny thing about that. I was thinking about that. I was thinking, 1, it would be interesting to do that, but 2, it'd be nice if Ethan pushed it over the top. But
Oh, we're gonna get there.
We'll get there for sure.
I think we're on our way.
So, Joe, here's something really cool, guys, out there. That Maria Laura, when she sent the first pages in, and in the opening scene, it takes place in New York City, 4th of July, 1944, and General George Marshall, who was the commanding general of all United States forces during World War II, is in it. And she sent, when I got the art, I couldn't believe that it looked just like General George Marshall. Yeah. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, how did you know this? And she's like, well, you put in the script that it was General George Marshall, so I just Googled him.
Yeah. Well,
a random guy, a random general, a random general. She made it look exactly like General George Marshall.
No, and listen, you
probably work together. It's cool.
You've probably worked with a variety of artists, whether it's you're writing a project and not drawing it, and there again, there's a handful of people that are dedicated that put in that work, and to some extent, and this goes back to what I was saying earlier, to some extent, with a different creative team and a different writer and a different artist, that general would just be white guy general number 2, on the call sheet, and he wouldn't be anything that's special or unique or historically rooted. Yeah. And I don't even know that Maria was infused with the gotta make this real, but it was natural to her. And that is so few and far between. And I don't want to listen. I don't want to run down writers. I don't want to run down artists. There's a lot of great people out there. It's just there are certain levels. I think with this project, there is a level of expectation on delivery above and beyond what you get from a regular comic book. And I think maybe that's what the secret, maybe I'm just realizing it now, and you guys have all realized it a long time ago, but because this is kind of new to me, but what the real underpinning of crowdfunding a book is it's got to be something above and beyond what you can just go get somewhere else, right? And maybe that's a duh statement, and I apologize if it is, but it does seem to be that is a huge part of it, and having the right creative team to do that is great, you know.
Yeah, and I want to thank you guys for allowing me that freedom, because you really have everything I want to do, Joe. You allow me to do, and I totally appreciate it.
Well, you know, my credo, and this is maybe genius in retrospect, but probably laziness from the start, which is hire the right people that you don't need to do anything with. You know what I mean? Like, it's about the right people for the job, and it's about people that have experience, and it's about people that know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And you know, there are a lot of things where you can take a chance on someone new, and there's a lot of opportunities for that. And certainly with this platform, there's a lot of opportunities to be more experimental and just ultimately do whatever it is you want to do. But within certain confines of storytelling, you want experience, and you want professionalism, and you want, you know, the what comes with the experience of doing comics, you know. Yeah. And it's not the hardest thing in the world, but it sure is not the easiest.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
And it is an experience, and it's an experience, and it's something that you, in the end, you want to be proud of.
Yeah.
You want to do honor to the memory of June Tarpé Mills, who sadly, this woman died alone and for the most part forgotten in 1988. And it's just like, she deserves better than that.
And all of her artwork she had, right? It wasn't. It all went missing.
Well, her
majority of it.
There was a big, giant closet, metal closet, that had all her art in. But I think when she passed away, they didn't know she had passed for, you know what I mean? Or he fears that it might because everything was cleaned out, and she thinks it might all be in a dumpster.
Yeah.
It might have all went to a dumpster, which is a shame. You never know. But I also want to say something. Yeah, we got Mike Soloff in, and if we can go to hey Soloff, if Joe, I don't know if you know this story. If we can go to the page of Marla in the dress, you know the that Maria drew,
the like half splash where she's entrance page.
Our first introduction to Marla Drake in 60 years, 70, 60 years. All right, that dress right there, and all the clothes that will be worn in Miss Fury that aren't uniforms, aren't American and German uniforms, are all designed by Michael Soloff's father, who recently passed away. Now, here's a story. My friend Mike, his father, he had dreams when he was a kid to be a fashion designer. And he has this incredible portfolio of, I don't know, it's a couple hundred beautiful gouache illustrations. And it's all his designs when he was 19 years old. So when his father got out of high school, what do you do back then in 1957 or so? You join the military. So he joins the Air Force, gets out of the Air Force, and what does he do? Well, you're not going to be a fashion designer, or no one even knew, you know.
Right.
So he went into work with his father in the, I believe it was a furniture store, selling furniture, salesman, everything like that. And that's what he did, and raised his family and all. And when he had passed away, when he was, if I can say this, Mike, when he was in hospice, the father had called Mike to come over and take whatever you want.
Yeah.
So Mike went into the closet, and Mike actually found this huge portfolio of and pulled out, and never knew it existed. And it's my great honor, and it is amazing. He was a virtuoso, Charles Soloff. It was unbelievable the talent this man had when he was in high school. That Michael actually showed this to editors of fashion magazines, and they were blown away. So It's really our honor to be able to showcase some of Charles Mark Soloff's fashion designs, original fashion designs. They live again, and a starlet, because that was his dream. He wanted a starlet.
Do you want Mike to come on?
I see someone in the chat saying that's one hot dress, and co-signed. I mean, whatever.
Soloff, do you want to come in?
He said, "Do you want him to come on?" I mean,
yeah, I'd love for him to come on. Can you send in the link?
Yeah, I can send him a link. Did you do you have any of those designs that you're speaking of? Do you have them, or does Mike have them?
I have all high res JPEGs of them.
Oh wow!
So apparently,
let me load one up. Let me see.
Load one up. I think it'd be great because this dress right here. Do you have this dress in its original design from his dad? I mean, how cool is that? He designed this in the 50s, and now unfortunately,
in the 40s he designed.
In the 40s, and now he's finally getting that
or something like that.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. And by the way, I guess we're $73 away from gold.
Oh wow, are we really?
Yeah.
Yep, $73 away.
I'm gonna mute my mic. Let me enter the broadcast. Hang on. So, Niall, do you want me just to mail it to you? Like text it to you or mail it to you?
Whatever's easier.
This is how the sausage is made, folks.
This is how the sausage is made. All right.
Are you logged into the studio?
I can get into the studio if you like.
Whatever's easier for you. I would email though.
All right, I'm gonna email it to you. That's easy.
File transferring in real time.
Yes. New message.
I guess I could help fill the dead space here, but
yeah, tell us what else.
I might be talked out. This is this is interesting because this is the first time I've done this. It's funny because during the COVID stuff, we've all been working from home, and we don't do Zoom conferences and stuff at the office. We just do regular phone calls where we communicate and touch base, and mostly email. So this seems like the last 2.5 months would have been a perfect opportunity to do this, but I have done none of it. So this was
I got it. Charles M. Soloff. Give me a second to find it.
So now, Joe, I mean, with the crowdfunding thing, I'm seeing a lot more of Dynamite on Indiegogo. Is this something you guys really want to start picking up more momentum on?
And we've crossed. So just to note that.
All right.
Yeah, right. Not bad.
When we've done stuff, but I think that during the COVID stuff, we really wanted to give some creators an opportunity to generate some revenue. Mm-hmm. So we did some alternate covers with Frank Cho. We're doing one. I think it might be still going with Lucio Perillo. We've got some other stuff coming. We've got this coming. We've done, Ethan has done some variant covers, although he's an engine unto himself. So, it was to serve, kind of some of the downtime when we started to do a little bit more. It was an opportunity, one, for the company to make some money, and also for some creators to make some money. This is not that particular instance, but this is also just, I don't know whether we would have launched this now or earlier or later if this COVID stuff had happened. I think this was always kind of on its own path. It's just that the COVID stuff got in the way, whereas some of the other crowdfunding stuff we've done, oh, that's gorgeous.
Yeah, so that's a dress, of course, and we use the wrap of her mink is actually Marla Drake's costume, is actually the Miss Fury costume.
Wow, that's beautiful.
But it's July, it's summer, so we had to summer it up a little bit, but you can see the slit, and you see she's got the fur, and General Marshall says, wow, you're wearing, you always have a fur with you,
right.
Stole in July, and she goes, well, and it's a little fun joke for those who are a little older. You might remember this one, Joe. It's like, well, I've learned to never leave home without it.
Right. Right. Yeah, that's beautiful. It's such a bygone era of design and illustration as well. And I'm not an artist in any way, shape, or form, but I certainly have an appreciation for the older material and the older way, and not disrespectfully in any way, shape, or form, but the older way that things were done, and just the attention to detail and the beauty of the piece itself. And that's a throwaway piece of art for that designer in some form or fashion. That's just that's not a finished thing. That's not the goal of the thing. That's the thing to get to the thing. And
that's a quick concept. That's the rough right there.
Yeah. But I love how elegant it is and alive. And again, it's more of a winter thing, so we had to summer it up. But I mean, it's what a great honor to be able to show Charles Mark Solof's art. You know what I mean? His designs.
Yeah, absolutely. I did not know that backstory. And that's beautiful. You know, that's really touching. And again, I think that's not to belabor, but I think that's one of the things that the selling aspect of this that you can do, and those details that you don't get in other types of projects or other types of ways of buying things. It's this attention to detail that is really unique to this, and it's really special. You know, so hopefully, and I think people are reacting well to it. I know we're on our first night and all that, but it seems like people are reacting well to it, which is cool.
Well, I mean, look at the level, though, of detail. Now that you know that, so now it's like, okay, so this story takes place in the 40s. It's kind of a rebirth that you guys are doing with Miss Fury, who originated in 1941. The costume designs in the book were actually designed in the 40s.
So
I
cool.
mean, just so much research, so much detail, so many amazing things just literally fell in place. Someone hit those dominoes right, and everything's falling where it needs to be.
Billy, we should get some of those designs into the actual. I don't know what the legalities are, and I don't want to. Boy, I'm doing all the things right now. I logistically hate about people that do things like this, but we should get some of that stuff into the finished product, some of that original design stuff.
Yeah, I would, and I'm sure. Well, I'm sure that Mike wouldn't mind. Well, did you try to reach Soloff to invite him in? Let's ask him.
See if I can grab him.
We got a few more minutes.
So Billy,
a message in Messenger.
Billy, I got to ask you because I we mentioned this earlier. What's your favorite World War II movie? What's your go? I'm sorry. Give me your 3 go-tos.
All right. Well, I have to say, and it's gonna be a little weird. It's my roundabout thinking. We were talking about it last night.
Is it Saving Ryan's Privates?
Yeah. No, not Saving Ryan. If I had never seen Band of Brothers, and I include that as a war film.
Co-signed.
The Pacific would be my favorite war film of all time. But I love Band of Brothers. Aside from a few of the technical things, I just love the storytelling. I love the production design.
Yeah, it's great.
It's unbelievable. The characters, everything. It's just
the acting. The guys in that you wouldn't think are able to pull off what they're pulling off as actors because of what they've done previous is amazing in and of itself.
Yep. And it's really incredible, and it was life-changing for me. That, I mean, there's a scene where at the end of episode 1, when they are leaving, when Dick Winters, Damian Lewis has his stick, which is his paratroopers. Now, I was in the airborne, so I had this special affinity to it, that he has all the men in his stick sit down on the tarmac right outside the plane.
Nice.
And he gives a little speech. He says, good luck, God bless you, Scala, and I'll see you on the assembly
Always
area.
keep it handy.
And then he reaches his hand out and he lifts every one of them up to get into the plane. And this music starts going, and then the scene where the engines start up, and all of a sudden you see the planes, the C-47 starting to move forward, and you get the faces, excuse me, of all these young paratroopers going into combat. We have to think is that on D-Day we landed almost 190,000 men on the beaches, but 6 hours before the first wave, 8,500 paratroopers.
Right.
Paratrooped in behind enemy lines. So it was 8,500 lightly armed paratroopers against 500,000 German soldiers.
Yeah, for sure.
And there's in history at one point, Eisenhower went to the fields. He went to a pottery field, one of the fields. It wasn't a pottery, it was another field. And he met these paratroopers. It's all off. And
hi, how are you?
Hands and talked to them and asked them where they were from and things like that. And he watched the planes take off. And once those planes took off, and he turned with tears in his eyes to his aide and said, well, it's on. There was no turning back. Because even if the invasion failed, those men were still back there. So that scene with them going over the channel and they focus in on Dick Winters' face and they pull out and he's sitting in the doorway of the C-47. And as they pull out farther and farther, you see I get all goosebumpy. I get all choked up. Is that you see below them the 5,000 ships of the invasion armada heading towards France, and these paratroopers flying overhead of them. You know, and it was really great. And there's another story of one of the captains of the ship of one of the ships saw the C-47 go ahead, and one of them was flashing the sign for the invasion, which was ... like Beethoven Fifth. Dun, 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 dun.
Right.
That was it, and he just kept flashing it over and over as one of the lead planes, you know, heading out towards it, and just, oh my God, it brings tears. I get all crazy about it.
No, it's, you know, that type of stuff, I think, is why, you know, all of that still remains so important, and so still has so much weight. And again, I am not a product of that generation, and I did not serve, but you know, I think growing up as a kid and having to appreciate, my grandfather fought in World War II, served in a tank division. But having appreciation for what was done, and then just again growing up with all that stuff on all the time. And I saw someone in the comments talking about combat. Mine was Rat Patrol. I remember watching Rat
Patrol. That was mine too.
Yeah, mine was Rat Patrol as a kid. I did not watch Combat as a kid, but I definitely watched Rat Patrol. I think Rat Patrol was a half-hour show, I think, right?
Yes, it was. Joe, well, I'm a few years older than you, but it used to be on at 1 o'clock in the morning on Channel 11 here on Long Island.
Okay.
If you guys had Channel 11, if you're from Jersey or something. And I would set my alarm clock to wake up at 1 o'clock just to watch that half-hour video episode and then go back to sleep every night it was on.
No, there was something, you know, I think it was the beret. It was that Jeep with the was it a 50 cal or whatever it was? That Jeep and the dudes in the berets and the goggles and whoever that actor was that played the German guy that they were after.
Yeah.
I mean, that show was the best.
Fantastic. Now, everyone here is Senor Rico Suave, otherwise known as Charles Mark Soloff's son, Michael. Now, Mike, again, this is a great honor, and Joe and I appreciate so much you allowing us to use your father's designs for a comic book. Joe had brought it up, and we want to know if it's okay with you, because Marla will be wearing more designs of your dad, and Erica will be wearing it in Paris. Is there a way that we could maybe put that in the book too and give full credit to your father and show
maybe a stretch goal?
Maybe a stretch goal. Yeah, no, absolutely, 100%. We will make that happen. That's not a problem with me, and being that I'm me, that won't be a problem. And Joe and Bill, thank you guys. I mean, I know I've been in talks with Bill's for years, since I first found these drawings about 10 years ago, and I've been working on trying to get them out to various and sundry places and means and people. And Bill has been there the whole time, backing me up and encouraging me, and to give me the opportunity to be able to showcase and show off my dad's stuff is just awesome. So thank you guys.
Yeah, no, it's gorgeous. It's gorgeous stuff. And again, thanks to you and Billy for bringing it to this. You know, you were watching the stream, and I don't want to monopolize here, but you know, the attention to detail and the fact that this stuff is being worked into, you know, a comic book story is really pretty amazing, and it's pretty cool. And hopefully people appreciate it. I think they do. So.
I know that somebody commented online here about are the dresses being made. The good news is that they are being made, a few of them. And very soon, I'm hoping to have actual photographs of the dresses with some models. And then I'm going to take those to a friend of mine in Bill's. I don't want to release her name yet until I get the okay, but I have very, very high hopes. And she is a wonderful actress, and I am just praying to God she'll say yes to the dress. Whichever one of the ones that are made that she would like, we will tailor it to her and make my dad's dream come true of being able to have one of his designs worn at some Hollywood award show.
Wow,
nice.
That's incredible.
Yeah. Well, my sequel does put Marla Drake in Hollywood.
Yeah.
My sequel idea. If this is it,
Love it.
It's great.
So I'm hoping that sometime in the next almost 3 weeks, I'll have an answer on that.
Excellent.
Awesome.
My goal is by the 21st to have an answer one way or another.
It'll happen. So Niall, we've been going on for it's
an hour and a half.
Yeah, hour and a half. Joe, thank you for being on here with us. Thank you all for helping us attain our goal. But I believe I'm going on Comic Artist Pro Secrets
in 15 minutes.
Yep. In 10 minutes, in what? 12 minutes. So
have a granola bar, use the restroom, get yourself ready, calm yourself down. You're gonna have a good time. Deep breaths.
If it's okay, could we run the video?
I've been waiting. Yes, let's run the video. Let me put the audio on. There we go.
December 1941. The United States officially enters World War II, a war which raged across Europe and the Pacific for over 5 years. But the previous April, a young writer-artist working under the name Tarpé Mills broke through a very particular gender barrier in the four-color world of comics. June Mills, who used her middle name Tarpé as it sounded masculine, created Miss Fury. First featured in the Sunday Funnies, but known to the history books as the first published action hero created by a woman. And boy, what a hero she was.
And I'm very proud of it because it was drawn by a woman. This is the original book. Being the second woman drawing it is fantastic.
Flash forward 80 years or so, and here's me, Billy Tucci, working on the return of Miss Fury, exclusive to you, our backers, right here on INDIEGOGO. An important graphic novel that has a very special place in my heart, presented to entertain our readers, but also to honor the character and her creator.
I cannot reveal too much, okay? But stay tuned. I will be posting a lot of things on my Facebook and on my social.
I take honor very seriously. And believe me, it's my honor to befriend the surviving family of Tarpé Mills. It's been a great honor to spend time with them and to talk to them about this project and how I intend to honor the legacy of her work and to honor the existence of this great underappreciated character. Maria Laura Sanapo, Cece Dela Cruz, Asha Kishna, Mindy Lopkin, and everyone at Dynamite Comics to bring you one hell of a Golden Age adventure that fits perfectly into Miss Fury's original continuity with original characters. It rekindles the spirit of the Golden Age and sees the return of one of the most influential characters in comic book history. Again, thank you for your time. Please pledge, please share. Peace, love, Fury strong.
Nice.
Awesome.
Excellent.
Was that audio off or no?
No.
I heard it.
Oh, audio was on.
Oh, okay, mine was a little skewered, so.
And that was brought to you by one, Billy doing a great job, and Jay Spence doing the edits, really making that thing sing. So
Jay did an incredible
job.
Gorgeous.
Great job.
Yeah, really, really cool.
All right. Well, thank you guys. Thank you for helping us to hit our minimum goal.
Mm-hmm.
Again, now we want to move forward so we can start to really turn this machine on. It's 100 pages. It's a big premiere format. We have hardcovers. We have a lot of great stretch goals in mind. We have a lot of great perks up here. So if you guys wouldn't, please share it. Please pledge. If you can't if you can't pledge right now, then share the project. We really appreciate it. And I want to thank you, Joe, and everyone at Dynamite for believing in me and believing in my story and just making this a reality.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, Billy, you more than earned it, and thank you. And guys, whenever we need to do this again through the campaign, I am game as long as I didn't blow this. But we have to do it
that was
early.
Great.
Right? We have to do it early because I go to bed very early. So
okay,
that's fine.
We'd love to have you back on. We really would, and we also would love to do a Dynamite show to talk about everything that Dynamite's doing.
Let's do it. Let's do it. This was fun. So and again. I'm sorry. Thank you. Just echo Billy. Thank you to all the supporters, and thank you to everyone that got us over our goal in, I guess, about an hour for some 40 and some change, which is great. We really appreciate it. We do have a lot of stuff planned, so this is just the beginning. So thanks to everyone.
All right, and then also, guys, tomorrow we've been doing some midday shows, but tomorrow is the first official lunch break with Billy Tucci at 12 p.m., and he is going to have on Maria Laura Sanapo on the show. So
nice.
If anyone has questions for her, wants to know her processes, what they're doing, make sure to tune in for that.
Great.
All right.
All right. Congrats, gentlemen.
Thanks,
Under
guys.
hour and a half, you're funded. Now let's push it.
Just beginning. Let's
Push
do
it.
it. Let's
Push
light
it.
this candle. Thank you,
All right.
O'Neill. Thank you for this, putting it together. Soloff, great to see you, Rico Suave.
Thank you. You too, sir.
All right, guys. Have
Give Debbie a
yourself.
call. She has some news for you.
All right, everyone. Thanks so much, and thanks for joining the Miss Fury launch party.
Thank you, everyone who supported Miss Fury.